Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Am Christina DiArcangelo. And today I am so honored and I'm elated to be able to have a guest on the show who's actually from the Ukraine. And we're going to be talking about different things as it relates to clinical research in the Ukraine. And my guest today is Anna. Anna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for your invitation. Thank you for having me with you today.
Absolutely. I was so glad that we connected on LinkedIn. And I thought immediately, you know what? It would be awesome to have you on the podcast so that you can talk about some things that we might not be aware of in the United States or anywhere, actually, because my podcast is global. So this was a great opportunity for you to talk about some of the things that you're seeing as it relates to clinical research in the Ukraine. So thank you so much again, Anna, for joining us today.
Likewise, thank you.
So Anna, why don't you tell our viewers and our people who listen to the podcast, because you can either watch it or you can listen to it, would you mind letting everyone know your background, where you've come from, what you've kind of been doing, what are you doing currently, and then we can kind of just get into it. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, thank you very much. So a little bit about myself. My name is Anna Titkova and I'm Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine, in Kharkiv. The city is on the east of Ukraine. My childhood dream was to become a doctor and put in all this my forces to achieve. I graduated from the National Medical University and then combined my medical, practical, clinical idea and practice with scientific work. I received some PhD degree, professor title, had a lot of publishing works and publications, patents. But maybe 5-6 years ago, I started to participate in clinical researches, starting from the sub-investigator role. And then step by step, I understand that this is the main place where I can combine my clinical practical knowledges with this my scientific approach. So this is the place actually where I can see the contribution that science can give to our people, to our patients in the real time, exactly today, exactly now, and exactly with some their pathologies. And in 2020, when the COVID pandemic was announced, I organized the part of the International Site Network Organization, PRATIA, on the territory of Ukraine. And during the first 2 years, we created a clinical research site. This was the first in the country, the SMO clinical research site in Kharkiv. We received all the legalization, let's say, authority approvals. After that, we started clinical research. It's complicated, refurbishment, furniture. So my life goal was finally putting into the creation of this our medical center, where I was able to bring this message, the message to my people, to our employees, to clinical research staff, PIs. What is the main goal why we're doing this our work in clinical researches? And in parallel, Pratia Clinic, we have another company, Pratia Ukraine. This was a pure site management organization that was working on the base of state or private hospitals in 5 Ukrainian cities in 3 Ukrainian regions. And then
so originally you started working as an MD, a physician. Obviously, you also have a PhD. You started combining the PhD with the MD so that you could start doing clinical research. You opened up a site management organization, otherwise known as in the biotech pharma industry, SMO. So from a clinical research perspective, biotech and pharma companies and private investigators will reach out to site management organizations to perform clinical studies. So you were running a bunch of clinical studies. What therapeutic areas were you focused on with your clinical research studies that you were running? And by the way, I love the fact that you wanted to bring the research to your patients in the communities, that you served across the 5 cities. That's amazing because it's brave to do that. You're a woman doing this. You know, you obviously have a team of people, but you did this and you were successful at creating this site management organization that went across all these cities prior to everything happening later on, which we're going to get to.
Yeah, you were absolutely right. And maybe just add that Pratia in Ukraine, it is a part of the international site network. We're operated in 6 European countries, and in Ukraine, this was a greenfield business. So everything really, as you mentioned, it was done from one paper of registration of 2 companies exactly on the first week after the full lockdown with COVID. And I was alone who was working in establishment and creating of 2 companies that were, I believe, successful at the end because we have more than 20 clinical researchers. We were the world best recruiter in one COVID hospitalization study. We performed a big high volume study also in COVID vaccination that period of time. So really it was my place of energy, of passion that I use and was trying to send to my people who was also new people, just created by me, gathering all together around our mission, the mission of our company, and putting clinical researchers closer to our patients in Ukraine.
Yeah, and here you are, you start this endeavor and the pandemic hits. Like you said, you were by yourself. And that's kind of scary, you know, like, whoa, my God, did I do the right thing by starting this organization during this time? And yes, it was the right thing. Not only did you step up, you moved forward with COVID treatment, you know, COVID protocols. I'll just call it COVID protocols. And that was to help humankind because we were in a crisis across the globe with COVID. And, you know, I was working on COVID also, you know, March 2020 was when I did my first filing. It was March 30th of 2020 when we only had 265,000 cases worldwide. That was it, March 30th of 2020. I have a photographic memory. That's why I can push these numbers back at you to, you know, like I don't have notes. It's just my brain. So I get it. Like here now, you're working in COVID, you're helping your humankind, and you're doing it internationally across 6 other countries that are working alongside you. This is amazing. I mean, I can't commend you even anymore. That I mean, honestly, that is huge.
Yeah. Thank you for such recognition and estimation.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a big deal. And so then you're working in COVID and you're working a log. And then now what happens? What happens to your country?
Yeah, at 4:45 a.m. in the morning on the 24th of February, an unpredictable situation that no one was believed in, no one was prepared for, appeared on our land. Yeah, the war started, and it was unbelievable. No one couldn't imagine that it might be and what to do at 4:41, maybe in the morning after the announcement was on TV from our authorities that really the war has started. My first idea and thoughts was somehow to help my employees to receive their salaries, to receive some financial payment, because we were not aware at all for how long will be the internet connection, mobile connections, at all, how
You were
we'll be
blacked
able to
out.
communicate. Yeah. So what will the next second, not even next minute? And yeah, we paid our employees very remotely, very quickly. It was at 5 a.m. in the morning, the salaries. And after that, we prolonged to pay them for 3 months as well, even without a work. After that, we were trying to be in touch. Of course, no one couldn't say what to do and what will be his next actions. But maybe now it will be good to say like an assumption of this 1 year. So during this 1 year, we managed to save our businesses. So it's still alive and it's still working. We were able to have our people, and they are, of course, not overloaded with the work, but at least for some period of time, we paid them their salaries, and we continue performing clinical research that were ongoing in Ukraine.
You said that you were able to save your business, which is, and I got chills when you were talking about this. I had chills up and down because I can't even imagine, waking up in the morning at 4:41 a.m. and hearing strikes going on and this mass chaos, and now we're blacked out and we don't know what's going on, and you're running a business that you just started not too long prior, and you're in the midst of everything. You're running clinical studies and this stuff hits the fan, right? Now you're in a war. Now in biotech and pharmaceuticals, in my limited experience, because will be 25 years this May, I was never involved in clinical studies when there was a war. Okay, never. I worked back in the day. This is going to date me way back to when I was working at Johnson & Johnson and SARS happened. Do you remember when SARS happened? And we were running global studies, and we could only talk to our doctors on like Thursday mornings at this insane time compared to our time zone over here, to them, to be able to talk to them about our clinical patients, right? So you're running studies and now you're in a war. You're responsible to the sponsor companies, the biotech and pharma companies, to be able to communicate with them as to what's going on, but you're in a war. How are you keeping these patients also? First off, how are you communicating with them, but the sponsors, but also, how are you keeping these people in the studies? I would be terrified. I wouldn't want to come out of my house.
Yeah, I might tell you even more that we have so responsible our patients that they were filling their diaries in the bomb shelters, in any other places, that at the end, when they finish their 1 year participation, we receive almost 90% compliance of filling all these sources, let's say. And of course, for the first few months, we had such a blackout, as you said. Any cooperation, any communication with no one, with sponsors, with no one who we can receive CROs, any feedback, what to do, how to continue. After that, of course, in a few months, we start to receive first messages. Of course, we always were online with our patients.
Right.
Messages, calling them by phones. So at least we know where they are and what they are doing. At the same time, maybe also mentioning about my employees, that Kharkiv was the first city to be bombed and heavily bombed for the whole year. And some of my employees, they lost their homes, and our clinic became their place of living. So it was also our decision because we have our inpatient department with beds, with wards, and this became a home for some people also to be for some period of time there. It was also our decision to make and to help them to survive in this period of time. After that, we were trying to find the solutions for our patients. There were a lot of relocations, internal, inside Ukraine, outside of Ukraine. And as we're an international organization, we have this opportunity to host patients in Poland on Polish side as the most closer country to Ukraine. And 14 patients, they were relocated and continue participation in Poland. So without any interruptions of their treatment, mostly oncological patients for whom it's the life-saving therapy to continue, multiple sclerosis, some rare diseases. So they were able to continue participation on our Pratia sites in Poland. So this was also one of the directions, what to do and how to help people to continue and to fight with their disease.
Clinical research is already hard enough, right? It's hard enough to run a proper clinical study, making sure, one, you enroll the proper patients with the right therapeutic area, with the right primary, secondary type things that you're trying to study, meeting all inclusion, exclusion criteria. That in itself is hard, right? Also, keeping patients in the study once you find them, that's also hard, right? But then also all the administrative tasks you have to do working on a clinical study, electronic data capture, all the source documentations you have to keep, the central lab data or local lab, whatever you're using, all those things you have to capture. Okay. I'm saying all this so that because some of our viewers are not us, right? They don't run clinical studies. They don't know. So I'm just reminding them of all those difficult things, right? And I've talked about studies that I've worked on where we've had tough recruitment, right? Where it was hard to find these patients based on whatever the therapeutic area was. I have never in my career had to work, as I mentioned earlier, had to work on a study where I had clinical trial sites in a zone that's in a war. So you had to become almost, no pun intended, and I mean no disrespect to the armed forces, but you almost became a soldier, so to speak, because you had to triage, okay, I've got to move this patient here, over here, over here, over here, over here. Okay, now my employees' homes got blown up in this one city. Where are they going to live? We have to support them because we are a family. So we're going to help them. So now we have to help them get into this, into our facility full time. We've got to make some changes there so they can live there, obviously. You had most of it already set up, but you still had stuff to do. And then once everything kind of came back online and you weren't blacked out anymore, now you have to go and report back to the sponsor or sponsors, because you were working on more than one. You have to report back to them everything that was going on, where all your subjects were, so they could also relax. Because I'm sure, being on the sponsor side for as many years as I have been in my career, moving then into the CRO life, I know what it's like, right? It's very, you get nervous, like what's going on with the site, da, da, da. And they're concerned for you and your safety and your teams and all their patients. They're your patients, but they become the sponsors' patients too, are all impacted by this.
Yeah.
How did you sleep at night? Did you sleep at all? I mean, I mean, you look great, but I mean, come on, how did you do all this? Because this is like, wow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And all of this, my few sentences may be calculating what we're done. It's just a tremendous work that was done and is continuing to be doing in our company there. But for me, as I mentioned before, this creation of our company on the territory of Ukraine, it was and became my life goal. And for me, life goal is something that not make you asleep late at night, but something that makes you wake up early in the morning. And for me, this was perhaps the main message that this is the mission. For me, this is the mission to bring this business and to make it alive. And from the moment I did it, there was no doubt in my mind at all that perhaps I am doing the most important and valuable thing in my life that I have ever done before. And for me, the biggest estimation maybe of this, my attitude was the messages from my workers that they're still waiting to return back to their full-time work, to return back to Kharkiv, to our clinical research site, because some of them are somewhere abroad, some of them are not in Kharkiv at the same time, but all of them are waiting for returning back and making this point for them, a place that they understand, that they have something where someone is waiting for them, that they have this place to return back to their life that all of us had before. So maybe this is also one of these main messages why I'm still struggling with this reality, trying to continue to show that it's possible. One day we will come to this final stage, and maybe it will be a story, a story of war of each of us. But at least this is a test on humanity that we should pass, and what will be at the end, we will see.
Absolutely. And I've got to say, this is our first time meeting over, in person, so to speak.
Yeah.
We were corresponding over LinkedIn and then email. One of the things that I feel like I'm really, oh boy, this, I can't even believe all this. And I knew you had a big story, trust me, because I could tell, but I feel as though your life's purpose was to honor patients, right? And all this happening to you, as crazy as it is, like, this is crazy. You were in a war, you're still in, the pandemic, starting a company, the pandemic, everything you did was intentional with your career. But this was your life's purpose. Your life's purpose is to heal people and to help people, not only your patients, but your teams and all your staff. I loved how you said, I want my people to have a place to come back to. Somebody's waiting for them there. That's so huge. That's so huge. And not many people in your position, Anna, a CEO, not many people with all the acclimates that you have does that. That is special. And so I just wanted to make sure that, I called that out because I could tell you're not somebody that's going to like puff it up and say, well, I did all these things because whatever, like superwoman, because you are a superwoman. Okay. No, you are. But you've got to, I would encourage you to remember this conversation we're having today. You should be proud of everything you've done. I mean, you've really got in there and you've been doing an amazing job, and you've been doing it time and time again, no matter how horrible things had been going on and things were out of your control. You kept going, you persevered.
Yeah, and I'm lucky to have people around me who believe also in these activities, who believe in our mission. People inside Pratia Global who decided to continue our activities and to have this year not profitable business for now, of course, obviously not profitable, but at the end to make this human factor on the top of financial numbers.
Yes.
And I'm lucky that I have these people of the same level of values as I have. And due to such cooperation, due to such relations, people all around the world, as you and with whom I have this possibility to speak, we will definitely bring the victory on our land.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, Anna, there's going to be some potential for us to collaborate in the future. Because as I mentioned when we were talking, there's some things we're working on, and there are humanitarian type efforts from a clinical research standpoint. So I think that there might be some opportunities for us to work together in the future. And I'd also, as we progress through the year and we see what happens over there in the Ukraine, I'd love to have you back on again, so that we could talk some more about, okay, where are we now, right?
Yeah,
this is April 19th.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this time today. Thank you for conversation, and we will definitely meet again in the nearest future.
Absolutely.
I promise.
And if there's anything I can do to help you, I mean this, Anna, okay? I'm happy to help you in any absolute way. That's why when you reached out to me, I was like, oh, I know what can happen, right? I can have you on the podcast, and we could talk about this on the podcast so that it can help give you some legs. And we talked about no problem. And then we talked about the magazine. So anything at all, Anna, please.
Thank you very much. Just need to leave our office here, but in any case, I will be in touch. I will write you a message.
Okay, awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so very much for being on with me today. We have different time zones, obviously, here. So I just wanted to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on with me today and for sharing your story. It's this is, wow. I don't even know what else to say.
Thank you very much. Thanks to such people as you, we have the strength to continue, not to give up, and to bring this mission of good, of something, bright and light at the end of this tunnel.
Absolutely. It's love and light, like we have to stay focused on the positive, because if we get too far into the negative, which you could have done during this process, and I know it was very, very tough, you didn't. You kept going forward and you kept staying positive, even through all these terrible trials and tribulations. And man, 10 years to come from this time, you'll be able to share all these things and help so many people. People are going to look back on this time and the things that you've done and how you progress things and how you're changing history. in the Ukraine with
Yeah.
your research. That is amazing, Anna. So I commend you for
Thank
all
you.
that you
Thank you
do.
very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And maybe we will have another podcast speaking about next steps.
Absolutely. So with that, as we always say, remember, we are the same. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Christina DiArcangelo.